Hello everyone, it's Victoria Sheridan here again, and today I'm speaking with Jo Olsen-Clarke, and she's wonderful. She's got a great business. It's Anja's Emporium, and an emporium could be lots of things, don't you think? So let's find out. So can I just say hello to you then, Jo? How are you?
Hi everyone. Hi Victoria. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's lovely of you to spend some time with us. Jo's Emporium, what is this? What's your business and what are you doing?
Anja's Emporium is basically a publishing business. So I am an author and a self-publisher, and I also publish books for other people on Amazon.
That's very helpful, isn't it? That's where a lot of people get stuck, isn't it? How to move their work out into the public sector. That's brilliant.
They say that everybody has a book in them. Some people have more than one, but everybody worries about how will I get a book accepted by a publisher. Well, now with the wonders of Amazon, we can actually self-publish our own work and other people's.
Yes, it's a fantastic time actually for liberation.
It really is.
And I think for people on low income as well, or low startup who perhaps are worried about the investment with publishers, that's great. So who are your general clients then, customers? Who comes to you mostly?
Well, basically, it depends. I actually have 3 pen names and 3 pen personas, and it really is about marketing to your target audience avatar. So you have to work out what that is. So one of mine is the 20 to 30 somethings, or the almost you'd say the 18 to 35s. So I have a pen name called Susie Livingstone, who goes to that audience. Then I have another pen name, which is Amanda Clark, and that target audience is around the 40 to 55 mark. And then I have a third pen name, which is Alexander James. I am now a man. And his target audience is people who are interested in history and also ad hoc things like art or possibly currencies. Alexander James now has a cryptocurrency and blockchain book in the works.
Fascinating. So you're very eclectic in your knowledge and your self-expression.
I think I'm probably eclectic in my life, actually. If we take music, for example, I'm not somebody who likes just one band or something. I like a little bit of jazz, I like a little bit of punk, I like a little bit of hip hop, rap, rock and roll, even classical music. I quite like opera. So I have very eclectic taste there. And I think that's just carried forward into everything else I've done in my life.
Yeah, so you seem to have a thirst for knowledge and adventure. I'm thinking now that you started off quite early. I know you were raised in the UK, but you soon went off to America, didn't you, to the USA on a sports?
Yes, I was one of the first groups of youngsters that were sent off on sports scholarships for swimming to the USA, to colleges there. And I was actually quite lucky because I was the youngest member of the squad that went across to Southern California and was studying at USC. And I was in a class of 1, so I had private tutoring, which meant that I did my A-levels early, I did my BA early, and I also got an MBA as well. So, but when you're in a class of 1 and you're tutored privately and you have nothing else to do except you're swimming and you're studying and you don't know anybody, you don't really have great friends there of your own age, you tend to focus a lot on your studies and achievement.
That's very rare, isn't it? That's a wonderful opportunity, although perhaps you're a bit lonely at times, But
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. I was very lucky because my older sister lives in California, so I was able to go and stay with my family quite a lot. And since then, because I had such a wonderful time in the USA, my younger brother, when he was of age, decided after he'd done his degree to emigrate and go and work in the electronics industry there.
So do you bring those qualities still throughout your life into your current business, your writing? Those qualities of being focused and
Gosh, absolutely. I'm currently watching, as you know, the Olympics are on at the moment, and I'm currently watching every swim meet that they have. I used to be a 200-meter butterfly swimmer and a 200-meter IM swimmer, and you have to be very focused. And with the IM, the individual medley, you have to be very trying to think of the word, flexible and adaptable is probably the right thing to say. So I've tended to be that way throughout my life and focus. I'm a big achiever. I think that comes from swimming. When I used to swim, I wasn't just happy to win a race. I like to win it by the biggest margin possible. So I'm one of those.
Yes, but you're a rarity. I mean, it's lovely to meet people like that. And I think in business, you can meet an awful lot of people, and in sport, and where there is outstanding achievement, like in theatre and movies and that. But on the whole, in the grand scheme of things, you know, it's quite a rare ability to do that. So that's something you can share with people as well. It's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. I must admit that I'm a great team worker, blowing my own trumpet here. I've always been a team worker. I'm happier working in a team and helping other people, and I've always been very happy to share my knowledge. I like to see other people succeed as well. I'm a great believer in, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Everything is give and take.
But that's interesting, because most sports people are, in fact, a lot of people are quite competitive, aren't they? And self-motivated. I find it quite rare again to find someone who is willing to share and is a good team player, seeing the end goal. And we saw that in the football, didn't we, on the Euro Cup? You know, we saw the different attitude of the players. It's not just me and I'm the star, it's we're a team. So that's interesting. So how, I'm thinking of your business with writing. How do you get your clients, customers to produce what their best, or are they reluctant to do anything with you? Do they just want you to provide a service, or are they coached by you and helped by you?
A little bit of both, really. Some people say, oh, I have a book, I know it's really good, and I'd like to publish it. Are you happy to help me with that? And I'll say yes, of course. But I'll also say to them, so what have you written about, and why have you written this? And try to understand what their motivation is and what they want the end result to be as well. You know, because that is important. You have to have your end result in your head to know how you're going to achieve it, first of all, but also to measure your success with it, which I think is something that people do struggle with. You know, people think, a lot of people think, oh, I'm either a failure or a great success. Actually, before you become a great success, there's a lot of steps to go through, and you have to be able to measure what you're doing right and what you're not doing quite so successfully, to be able to improve on that, to be able to meet your end goal.
Yeah, you have to learn your art, don't you?
Indeed.
Yes,
indeed.
Yeah. So can I just ask you, and if somebody's watching this now and is interested, how do you work with people? Do you take them by the hour, or in blocks or tasks or jobs, or is it the whole thing at the end?
Basically the people that I've had so far up until now have actually got a product that they want published, and I have taken a fee for helping them do that. But I haven't really helped too many people through the whole process as such. You know, I've been giving my knowledge away free quite a lot at the moment, but I actually think that as another stream of income, I need to be looking at, you know, kind of what I would charge for helping people along the way. And it is really quite difficult. A lot of people, it depends, are you the self-indulgent type that just wants to write a book about your life and get that published? If you are, there's a lot of satisfaction in that, but the actual audience you have for that may be quite limited, and if you're wanting to make a profit out of it, you then really need to think about how you're going to market that, and have you got an audience for that product. You know, but with other people, what they really need to think about before they even start writing is, actually, is there a market there for what I want to get out there? I mean, one book that is very successful for me is really, I find it quite a bizarre thing, but during lockdown, I decided to cultivate sprouts in my kitchen in a jar. And I had about 6 or 7 goes at this, and each time they came out really manky and horrible and quite rancid smelling. And I was just like, oh, I am never going to make a success of this. So what I did was I called up a friend of mine who's really green fingered, and she's a very healthy eater. And she makes sprouts all the time. She does alfalfa sprouts, she does bean sprouts, she does pea shoots and whatever, and they're all done in jars in her kitchen. So I got her to do a Zoom meeting with me and actually walk me through the process. I made copious notes, and it actually occurred to me, after I'd had my first 3 lots of sprouts done at different times, and they all turned out absolutely perfect, no manky smelling rancid sprouts anymore, and I could actually eat these on my salads. I thought to myself, you know what, I wonder how many other people have had the issue that I've had. So the first book that I published was almost a fool's guide or an idiot guide to how to make your own sprouts in your kitchen. And you know what, I've made about £150 off that residual income. You know, I basically wrote it out, and it really was nothing more than a list of what you do, a step-by-step guide to making really lovely edible foolproof sprouts.
That's amazing. It's a
And
wonderful
about
story.
every month I make between about £80 and $150 off that one, because my main market is the USA. They tend to buy a lot more books than anyone else.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because there's a couple of things there. One is you know, people with, you know, how they would work with you, and also you know, the types of things that people would write, and actually then making that into a residual income, because it doesn't matter how small, if it pays a bill every month.
Absolutely.
Because most of the women I work with are older, we're more mature, we're reaching certain thresholds in life, and looking at pensions and looking at a change in lifestyle and longevity, you know, how long would the money last. So if you can write a book or more books and have some residual income, it doesn't have to be a bestseller like Harry Potter, but this is something that
it could be.
I want people to think outside the box like you did.
I mean, I'm in that category that you've just been talking about, and what I was looking for was passive income. So something that I can put out there and it will kind of make itself known and it will work, you know, and it's not that easy. You do have to think about it. I'm forever on Facebook doing little bits of marketing for my books now in certain groups that I've joined for different books. And you really have to work at it, but maybe you only have to work at it 1 hour a day or 5 hours a week or something.
There's alternatives, isn't there? The marketing aspect is often something that puts people off. I have a friend at the moment who's going through the process with a publisher, and the last time her book was published, it was a marathon, as she worked so hard to market her books more than the publisher was willing to do. She had to market it herself, and she had to do so much work. It was really exhausting. within a very crashed period of time to get
Mm.
those awards for, you know, bestseller in this, bestseller in that. And so
Yeah.
you've got the acclaim afterwards and being an acclaimed author. And it was very, very tiring. In fact, she probably tell you this, I'll probably interview her soon, but she didn't really write anything for a while afterwards, because a creative isn't always, or a sensitive creative even, you know, isn't always able to market themselves. And
That
it's
is
taken
true.
her quite a long time to summon up the strength now to go ahead again with a second book. And of course, once you've done it, it's easier. But it's something, like you say, you don't have to work that hard. You can just trickle over and then start marketing it. And it could be a slow burner, couldn't it?
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that. She and I should have a conversation, I think.
We'll
But
see, yeah.
no, I've got a wide variety of books out at the moment. So I have the Sprouting book, which sells morning, noon and night, which is really what you want, you know.
Yeah,
I have a couple of parenting books. Yeah, a couple of Nirvana, a couple of parenting books. Which I had to write with, I got a ghostwriter to help me with that one, but I have a lovely ghostwriter for this particular thing, and she has 3 children that are between 8 and 17. So I've done a parenting book on pre-teens and teens, so that's going really very well as well. And I'm in several Facebook groups, and every now and again I kind of post and say, oh, you know, I've read this book recently, have you read this? And you know, I find that if you try, and this is an awful thing to say, but if you try and say, oh, this is my new book in the Facebook groups that are specific to this particular subject, they won't listen to you, they won't buy. But if you say, oh, I've read this recently and recommend it, then you'd be surprised how many sales you get, really.
Yes.
Quite phenomenal.
Well, that's the power of recommendation, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's another reason why we're doing this interview today, is to help people to understand who you are, where you are, and what you do. So whereabouts are you actually at the moment? Where are you living?
Where am I living? I live in Hartley.
And where's that? In Kent?
That's just near Longfield, so between Bluewater and Brands Hatch. Very dangerous, Bluewater. I do love to shop.
Okay.
And if I keep finding loads of different income streams, maybe I'll be able to afford to shop madly.
Well, we have to look ahead, don't we? And
we do indeed.
Yes, I mean, it's like digging for gold, isn't it? You can come across randomly one of these big hits, and it's keeping in mind that we've got quite a global audience for these interviews. So Kent is in the UK, not the USA, and it's it's called the Garden of England, and so Kay is there at the moment. So Kay, you've travelled. I've got a hair in front of me. Sorry. You've travelled quite a lot, haven't you? So you started off with America, and you were part of the cabin crew for BA.
Yes, so when I finished swimming, I used to swim competitively, which was how I got the scholarship. When I finished swimming, I realised that travel was my narcotic of choice. And I thought to myself, so how do I get to travel around the world? So I thought to myself, you know what, I've had a lot of restrictions in respect of education and discipline for the sport and so on. So I wanted a little bit of a wild time, and I decided, what kind of job could I get? So I went out for cabin crew with British Airways, and I ended up working for them for the better part of 25 years or more. Wow. And I did a variety of different jobs. So I started off as cabin crew and went all around the world doing that. I then moved into what's called mainline British Airways and worked back in UK. And I did all sorts of jobs. I worked in technical departments. I worked in special services, which is where you get to escort all the VIPs and wear an Armani suit. But believe me, I was a size 12 then, which I no longer am.
Me neither.
And
most days are gone.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of you have ever used airports. But BA was one of the forerunners in the self-service check-in industry, and I installed Generation 1 and Generation 2 self-service check-in machines at airports around the world. So got to travel a lot doing that as well. I then moved into a variety of different things, and then BA decided I moved into what's called the people department and training. And BA decided to sponsor me for what's called CIPD, Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, which is basically an HR degree. So I worked in training at British Airways for a long time, and actually this is where another of my books comes from. So I actually designed and developed a training course for senior executives and senior managers at British Airways to help them with their time management, because a lot of them were feeling stressed and overwhelmed by the sheer weight of work they had to do. So I designed and developed a one-day training course for them, and it was really about, so the morning would mainly be about understanding what it is and why you're feeling so stressed and overwhelmed by your workload, and the afternoon would be about, okay, different tools and tips that you could use to help manage that. And just simple things, you know, like looking at maybe, I don't know if anybody knows what a Boston box is, but these used to be big in training and personnel, and you would have a page and you would divide it into 4 sections. And so you would look at what needs to be done now, what can be put on hold for a little while, say till the end of the week, what you need to do at some point in the future unspecified, and what you can actually say thank you very much and goodbye and move out of your purview. And this was really, really successful, and I think most businesses throughout the world use some kind of variation of what we used to call the Boston box.
I'm coming back,
you know, apologies to anyone living in Boston, either in Lincolnshire or Massachusetts.
Wow. It's wonderful because you get such a rich experience, don't you? I was thinking then of your writers, you know, when it comes to delegation and writer's block and overwhelm. And also, you know, even if you're a woman looking for multiple streams of income, it's something that we find in the daily challenge as well, isn't it? And I think that's a really good skill. But I can imagine that you could really help writers, especially when it comes to delegation, because no creative really wants to let go of their baby. They find it very difficult to let someone else do anything.
It is quite difficult. I mean, the book I wrote was called 5 Easy Steps to Overcoming Overwhelm, and it is so paralyzing. I don't think people realize the power of women, particularly juggling so many plates in the air. And, you know, how do you work out which are your priorities, and why do you feel guilty prioritizing 1 or 2 things over the rest? And I think we need to kind of understand what we need to do. Again, going back to this Boston box thing, what are the priorities at this point in time? What can be shifted a little bit? What can be moved quite a lot? And actually what can be got rid of? And it might seem like it's important, but perhaps it can just be delegated elsewhere totally.
And I think that's true for women in particular with low self-esteem, but also when it comes to marketing, if that's the thing that's stopping you from actually producing your book or publishing your book, is because, okay, when you've done it, you've got to do something with it. It's you can delegate it. There are professional marketers who will market your things for you and tell you where to go. I did meet a writer quite a long time ago now, a few years back, and she's a prolific fiction writer. But she never wanted to go and do book signings, things like that, which is something she had to deal with. So she took some classes on public speaking and appearing in public. She overcame her fear. But to be honest, the publisher and other people had to take over because she just wouldn't do it. She couldn't do it. So it's very interesting how the personality is probed, because like you with your studying, you need to focus and you need to get rid of other distractions to create, but then you go through the process, and these days it's so digital and so technical, very hard to do all to be skilled in technical issues as well as writing creative, and then to go and face the world. It's a very demanding prospect, and I think that's why a lot of writers actually don't get further than writing a few chapters. There's an unconscious fear of moving forward and what they might be asked to do. But the success,
there are a lot of people that will ghostwrite now. I know if anybody's read a celebrity memoir, 9 times out of 10 they will be majority ghostwritten. I would think probably 99% of it, and you'll maybe have a foreword at the front written by the celebrity themselves. There are ghostwriters, there are agencies. Sometimes you have success with them. Some are better than others. Some you personally gel with better than others, you know, and it really is about, if you're going to use a ghostwriter and if you have ideas but aren't sure how to put them down, using a ghostwriter is a good thing to do. I've used a couple. One I've had great success with, and to be honest with you, 2 others I've used, well, 3 I've used now, but 2 others I've used. One gave me great bones for what I wanted to get down and gave me a lot of good ideas, but I ended up virtually rewriting it myself. And the other one was just so appallingly bad. The English was just awful, and I just thought, you know what, no, I'm doing this one myself. So
it's amazing what you can do.
There are loads of people that you can delegate to. There are people that can proofread for you. I'm very anal. Even if I put it to a proofreader, I then proof it again myself and spell check again myself. And it's quite weird because I actually showed somebody, a friend of mine, a copy of the first book that I put out, and she said, "Jo, you just have so many spelling mistakes. You know, you don't spell specialised with a Z." And I went, "Well, you do in America, and my main market is American, so that's where it's going, you know."
And that's a decision, isn't it, in all business these days, because you even have to think, are you going to sell in dollars or pounds? And
absolutely. But you know what, actually self-publishing is not the mire or the minefield you think it is, and if anybody wants to talk it through or needs some help, I am happy to do it for a small fee, of course. But
that's brilliant. That's lovely to know. So this is all part of Anja's Emporium, and so what led you to develop this way, because you've gone from swimming and being in America to traveling around the world to having a huge, phenomenal career in BA. And then how did you get from there to where you are now?
Where I am now?
Yes.
Okay, so very interestingly, so I remarried and moved down to Kent, and when I did that, I just couldn't travel. I loved my work at BA, absolutely loved it. And it was like having so many different jobs, because they encourage you to work in different areas of the business so that you understood the more holistic viewpoint of the whole thing. And I was just very sorry to leave, but I couldn't do 100 miles round trip every day. And it wasn't so much the distance, but if you get on the M25, which is the worst road ever, it was probably 55 minutes from door to door, but quite often it would take me 4.5 hours. And you could never put a meeting in the diary. It was just impossible. So I angled for severance, and as I was in the HR department, I managed to work that one out for myself. And they agreed to it, and so I moved down to Kent, and then I went contracting. And so what I used to do, my speciality in HR was restructuring and streamlining different areas of business so it became more profitable and easy to manage. And I had a real knack for it, and I also loved doing it. So when I went contracting, I was picked up by some very big companies. So I worked for a company called International SOS for a while. Then I worked for EDF Energy, and with EDF Energy, I originally went for a 3-month project, and I finally left them, it was the better part of 18 months to 2 years later, because they kept finding things for me to do and different areas to change for them. I then went to John Lewis and did a whole restructure of their IT departments and did things differently for them. And then I was just about to start a big project with BT, and then unfortunately I had a major stroke.
Wow. Oh yes. Okay.
And it took me about 18 months to walk and talk properly and really get my mental focus back.
Oh, poor you. That must have been a very frightening ordeal for you and your family.
Terrifying.
How did you cope with that? What happened?
Terrifying. And you know what was worse was I was so fairly young. I was in my early 50s when I had the stroke. So what was really horrifying was they have all these lovely therapists, but they put you in a ward with the really elderly that have been suffering with strokes like this. And all they wanted me to do was learn how to make a cup of tea. And I kept saying to them, I don't want to make a cup of tea. I know how to make a cup of tea. And they just wanted to see if everything functions so that you can follow the process, because some people have difficulty with that. And as I was getting better, I had kept going for occupational therapy sessions, and I was getting really frustrated with the guy. And I said, I don't think anything you're giving me is helping me. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, what I think I need to know is where my peers would be, my previous peers before I had the stroke. I'd need to know where they are. I'd need to know where I am now, and I need to know how to bridge that gap. I said, so if you can help me with that, then you're my man. If not, we need to find someone else to help me do that. Right. And we did actually find someone else.
Yeah, but you knew what you wanted. You could identify.
Yeah,
what
yeah.
You needed.
I think it was. Yeah, it was very frightening, because this guy, and he was only a young guy, and I think perhaps it was lack of experience. You know, he was thinking, okay, I need to treat this person as the stroke victims that I've been used to, who are, probably 20 years older than me, 25 years older than I was. And he was kind of focusing on what they needed and not really understanding, okay, so not only am I a woman, but I am a woman who's been very successful. I've had a really super successful career. And what I need to do is not to be put in a little box and said, oh, you're going to be an old lady now with very limited things available to you. So I was getting quite frustrated with him. He must have been getting super frustrated with me, getting frustrated with him.
Well, you must have taught him a lesson, because it's so easy to go by the book and, like you say, to be corralled into expectation, which is where he was coming from.
Pigeonholed, or popped in a little box and labelled. Yeah,
I quite agree.
It was quite frightening. And he was actually, out of all of it, he was the one that was frightening me the most, because he was trying to reinforce limitations onto me. And I was like, oh, hold on a moment, this is not happening, so we need to reevaluate this, And luckily I had the strength of mind and, the kind of outgoing personality to put a stop to it before it really kind of affected me, my mental well-being and mental health moving forward.
Yeah.
But it did take it out of me and give me a couple of years where I felt that I couldn't do things.
I can understand.
I obviously couldn't go back to the type of work I did before because of the stress levels. And also, when you contract, you're only as good as your last project. And this was like, I hadn't worked for over 2 years by this time. And then if you then go for an interview and say, oh yes, I can restructure your division quite happily. And they say, what have you been doing for the last 2 years? Oh, I've been recovering from a stroke. There's then the employers looking at you and thinking, oh, what are the limitations here? You know, yes, she has a good reputation, but she hasn't done anything recently. And
So what was
also,
your
you
next
see,
step then? What did you do next?
so what I did was I had a conversation with my husband, and he said, well, look, I do not want you, I'm glad this is happening, because I don't want you going back to this kind of stress level, which perhaps contributed to what happened to you. I want you, and his words were, I want you to take a nothing job. And I said, what do you mean by that? And this is so insulting, so please don't hate me for this. But he said, I want you to find a job where you can go into it in the morning. As you step in, you get into job mode. And then as you step out the door, when you leave for the day, you just wipe your hands of it. You're not thinking about it. And you've just got a life outside of it, rather than constantly thinking about what can I do to be better? What can I do to do that? And that worked for me in many respects, but it bored me silly. So,
So you
and the job,
became,
God love it.
one of the jobs I know that you had when we first met was you were a funeral celebrant, which was something that I looked into, becoming a celebrant for weddings and all kinds of celebrations, and that's interesting. So how did you get into that? What happened there?
Well, the day job was boring me, and I was only part-time. So I thought to myself, what else could I do? And I've always been quite interested in writing. And a friend of mine was a wedding celebrant. And I thought, oh no, I don't think I want to do that. 2 months angst around weddings and nerves, you know, that would probably stress me out. And I thought, you know what I would really like to do. And what had happened was, when my dad died, I had done his funeral service. He said I was the only person he trusted to do it properly and not give him too much of a religious send-off. He said, I want it to be fun. And he was 95 when he died. And he said, I don't want it to be miserable. I want it to celebrate my life. So we did, you know, my brother helped me with some bits of it, and I did it. And we had, we sent him off. He went for cremation, and we sent him off to Viva Las Vegas, which was what he wanted, because he found it funny. He said, bright light city, gonna set my soul on fire. He found that quite ironic, because he was going to be cremated. He thought it was hilarious. So I did that, and after that, loads of cousins and aunts and uncles, if they knew anybody had died, they were really moved by the service that I did for my dad, and I got roped in to do everybody's services. And having an older family, I ended up doing about 30 or so the following year. And one of them was watched by a lady who was a very experienced celebrant. And she said to me, oh, how long have you been doing this? And I said, oh, no, this is just for my auntie. And she said, oh, you should train and do this. And I looked into it, and I thought, you know what? Yes, that would be lovely, because it's really about giving someone a really personalised service. With funerals, what generally happens historically is it's all very formulaic, and you come in, it's all very timed these days. You know, you have half an hour for the service, and without wishing to be rude, a lot of religious services are very formulaic, and it's come in, we say this, we do that, okay, the prayer maybe changes, the hymn maybe changes, but there's nothing really about the person. So what I wanted to do was offer really personalised funeral services for people. So a couple that I have done, for example, one was for a Star Wars fan. So we had Star Wars music. He came into Star Wars music, and he was carried by people wearing Jedi cloaks. You know, all the guys that carried him in, the pallbearers, had Jedi cloaks. And then as part of the eulogy, we had a mock lightsaber fight, you know, just for a minute or so, you know. And it was all about this guy's love for Star Wars, how he was addicted to the movies, how he really enjoyed them, and so on, and how it was part of his personality, and that he'd grown up with them, you know. And that was very personalised. Another was for a gardener that used to win awards for his rhododendrons. And so it was all flowers and poetry and stuff like that. And we talked about his awards, how he got interested in that, how he became a gardener. After World War II, he came home and he started working on the land and so on. And, you know, it's really personalised, and it does something really lovely for the family of the bereaved, the bereaved family.
It's so important, to be honest, Joe, because I've been to funerals where they've spoken so mechanically, or, you know, the vicar's not known the person, the vicar's turned up, talked about a few details, often gets it wrong, the number of children wrong or something like that, and talks about the person in their name where they were always known by their nickname or mum, or, and it just doesn't feel like it's connected. But in my family, we have memorials, and the children are involved, and it's a beautiful memorial with photographs and everything else. So so I can see a book in there, that you've got enough stories there without naming names to write another book. Yeah. So this is very interesting. What would you've come forth right round into more writing, and you're doing your public.
So this was it. I did create a lot of creative writing in the funeral celebrancy thing, and then we went into lockdown on the 20 whatever it was of March.
I don't want to remember.
And because I have lupus, I was shielding, so this was what caused my stroke. I have this antiphospholipid syndrome, which means my blood clots too much, so I have to take warfarin, or commonly known rat poison, every day. And so I thought to myself, well, I can't be sitting at home every day. What shall I do? So I decided I would do some writing. I like creative writing. And then I thought, what shall I write about? And then at the same time, I started doing the sprouting. And this led to the first book, How to Sprout. And then after that, I kind of thought, okay, so what else do we want to talk about? What are people interested in? And I did a lot of research, and I'm not very good with the fiction stuff. So I just thought to myself, although I did fancy myself at having a crack at Mills and Boon one day when I was a youngster, but, you know, because they are quite formulaic. A friend of mine at school, her mum used to write Mills and Boons very successfully, and it used to pay for very exotic holidays every year. But I thought to myself, so what else? So I did a lot of research, and I've got my little research up here on the wall. So some of the main genres that sell really well in best-selling niches for Kindle and Amazon are parenting, relationships, biographies and memoirs, history, romance, self-help books, craft, hobbies and home, business and entrepreneurship, children's non-fiction, health, fitness and dieting. And so far I have all but 2 of those niches covered. I've published something in each of those niches so far.
That's excellent. That's good news. That's good news. Well, our time's coming to an end now, Joe, and
well, thank you for having me.
Fascinating. But I think for me, what I've picked out from you is that you've got a great deal of tenacity, commitment, and you have a very open heart, and you're able to embrace other people, and you obviously don't mind giving all of your knowledge and information, even that last little snippet there. So that's amazing for people. If they come and work with you, I'm sure they're going to get an awful lot from you, more than they expect. And you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing what else you publish. So what's next?
I've just published a new one, which is on borderline personality disorder, and it was published a couple of days ago. It is free on Kindle Unlimited. And it's a really good one. If anybody knows anybody with bipolar, a lot of people are misdiagnosed as bipolar, and a lot of people that so-called bipolar sufferers may well be borderline personality disorder. And the reason I focused on this is because I have a family member that committed suicide not so long ago. And he had been misdiagnosed as bipolar for about 10 years. He'd been medicated up to the eyeballs for it. And actually that wasn't what was wrong with him at all. He had borderline. But by the time they'd found out that that was what the issue was, he was just so fed up and so distraught that just couldn't manage to start a whole new chapter with a new disease. But so it's written from a layperson's perspective. And as I currently still work part-time in a hospital, as well as my part-time celebrancy business and my part-time author and publisher business, I have friends, and I have a friend who works for Oxley's, who is a psychologist and has helped me greatly with this book, you know, just with definitions and things like that. It really is just a layperson's guide, but it's a good one to have a look at. So that just went this week, and I am...
What's the pen name for that? Who are you written that under?
It is Amanda Clarke, Clarke with an E. Amanda Clarke, and it's called Borderline Personality Disorder by Amanda Clarke.
And that's on Kindle, or is it paperback as well?
It's not quite ready for paperback. Paperback will be ready in about 4 or 5 days. It's just in review on Amazon at the moment, but the Kindle is out there already.
Lovely.
Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah, well, you're a true example of what I would love everyone of my clients to do. And I mean, it's good to focus. If you've got a career or a business or some idea of what you want to do, it's great to go for it, and I'm all for that. But we do need other income besides that. So you've made it sound very simple, Jo, but I'm sure it's not. And if anybody wants your help or to ask you any questions, how would they contact you? What's your
yeah, just contact me on my main email, which is jo.olsen-clarke without an E. So jo.olsen-clarke9@hotmail.com.
And do you have a website or a Facebook page?
I have an Anya's Emporium Facebook page, but it is still in its infancy. So I'm looking for somebody to help me with that a little bit. So I'll be checking your web pages, Victoria, hopefully finding someone that can help with that. Maybe we could do a trade-off.
Yes, but we'll discuss that soon and find out how I can help you. So this has really been an interesting story that you've got. You're a very productive woman, very exciting woman, and overcoming, despite illnesses and strokes and phenomenal things that have happened and sadness with your brother, there is a very optimistic side to you and a very positive side. And I really want to promote the fact that getting older and being a woman is still full of adventure and has so much potential. And thank you, Jo, because you are an epitome of that. So thank you very much for coming along today.
Oh, thank you for having me again. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, do. So that's replay if you want to catch that again, but I'll also put Jo's email connection in the comments, etc. So I'll look forward to seeing you again, and goodbye from us.